100 pilots look away. One woman stands. No applause. Just a broken watch on her wrist, an empty wallet in her pocket, and a dusty road behind her. Tonight she'll fly a route no map admits exists. If she fails, a SEAL team dies. If she succeeds, everything changes. Stay with me. The briefing room hummed. Vents, fluorescence. Throats cleared and then fell still. The SEAL captain didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words traveled like a blade slid from a sheath. Her valley nobody returned from. Weather that erased instruments. A target that moved like fog. He asked for a combat pilot. Chairs creaked but bodies did not. Eyes fixed on notebooks, on boots. On the invisible safety line that kept heads down, Olivia Robertson stood, no flair. No speech. She rose the way quiet decisions do. With weight, not noise, the captain's gaze landed on her like a stamp on a passport. He read something on her face. Not ambition, not bravado. Just the simple math of duty done in the dark. He nodded once. After, the room exhaled. Conversations flashed back on, lightning strike short, and then ran for the exits. Olivia stayed where she was, hands loose, jaw set. She looked at her watch. The crystal was spidered. It had cracked 2 years ago on a tarmac when a rotor wash hurled gravel across a row of flight suits. She never fixed it. Time for her was not about display. It was about weight. The watch still ticked, barely. In her pocket, an empty wallet. The leather had a soft fold where cash used to sit. It carried a photograph crease without the photograph. Choices cost. She kept the wallet like a receipt. On the drive over, the base road had been dust. It clung to her boots. It clung to the tires. That road had a twin in her memory. The one she had walked as a kid to a bus stop that never had shade. Dust in the teeth. Dust in the lungs. That road taught her patience. That road taught her pace. Keep moving. Drink later. The captain dismissed them. Olivia went forward. They sat in a smaller room. The table shone. The maps didn't. Mountains rose like teeth on the satellite printouts. The captain tapped a route that didn't look possible. We can't go high. We can't go wide. We go through. He told her what broke the other aircraft. He didn't shield it. He spoke like a mechanic reading a wreck. Wind shears that tossed rotors into rock. Strewn metal. Lost calls. Radios coughing out half words and then nothing. Still want it? He asked. Olivia thought about the dusty road. The empty wallet. The broken watch that kept trying. Yes. The hangar smelled like hot oil and cold metal. The aircraft crouched under floodlights, armor layered like plates of old shields. It looked heavier than the air it had to bite. A chief with sleepless eyes showed her the new nerves wired into the bird. Terrain following. Threat sense. Dampers beefed up. It would still fight her, he said. Everything alive fights. She put her palm on the skin of the aircraft. It was scarred. Not pretty, but it was honest. The SEAL team came in quiet and shaped like purpose. No swagger. A glance, a nod. A man called Brooks adjusted a sling that had seen deserts and oceans. He asked nothing. He weighed her with a gaze that said he'd trust the math if the math trusted them. Olivia checked her watch again. A slow tick. She listened to it like a metronome for grit. Outside, a ground crew rolled a toolbox past. A single wrench on top flashed under light, then fell, then clanged, then spun. It pointed east when it stopped. The captain leaned in. We step at 0200. Weather goes ugly at 0300. We need to be ghosts by then. Ghosts leave tracks, Olivia said. Wind erases them. He almost smiled. Almost. The hangar doors opened. Night pressed a cold hand against the bright. A siren sounded once on the far side of base. Then silence. The floodlights flickered. Olivia felt it before she understood it. The quiet changed shape. Like air held its breath. Her broken watch ticked. Once. Stopped. The hangar lights went out. Somewhere in the dark, a metal scraped metal, and a voice said not loud, not soft, she's not supposed to fly. Emergency lights woke in thin red bars along the walls. Shadows grew taller. The chief swore softly and ran toward a panel. The captain's orders cut through the low chaos. He didn't bark. He trimmed panic like a surgeon trims dead skin. Power returned in pieces. 1 floodlight, then 3. Then all the aircraft sat where it had sat. But now it looked like a held breath. Sabotage. Brooks said, not accusation. Just inventory of risk. The chief shook his head. Breaker surge. Old panel. We'll swap it after. He didn't believe himself. Or he believed the clock more. Olivia climbed in. The seat bit her shoulders. The harness smelled like machine and rain. She traced switches with a gloved finger. New layout, old reflexes. She fought her hands and taught them again. A map lay folded near the collective. A corner stuck out like a paper tongue. She slid it back in, neat, like telling fear to mind itself. The engine started like a promise uttered through clenched teeth. Low, rough, then steady. The panel lit with organized stars. She watched one gauge more than the others. Hydraulics, always hydraulics. She lifted an inch and set down. The skids whispered apology to the concrete. She lifted again. The bird was heavy in the nose, but honest when trimmed. She backed to hover. Drifted left, countered, settled on a nickel of space until the chief's eyebrows loosened. Again, she said. They ran a strip of hard practice along the edge of the night. Quick patterns. Tight turns. Big heartbeats. Every time she sat down, she smelled hot dust rise. The hangar floor held sand from other places. Afghanistan, Somalia. Places that stayed in the cracks of everything. She stood down. Sweat ringed her neck under the flight suit. The empty wallet in her pocket had grown warm, like it carried a coal. Brooks appeared at her elbow. He held a tin of coffee the way a medic holds a tourniquet. He offered it. She shook her head. He drank. He looked at the aircraft and then at her. "Why you?" he asked finally. "Because I can fly it," she said. "That's a skill," he said. "Not a reason." She didn't answer. Some things belonged to the dusty road and the long bus and a doorbell that rang on a day that had no shade. A folded letter. A watch returned by a hand that didn't meet her eyes. The captain returned with weather. It moved like a slow bruise across the map. The valley sat under the worst of it, as if the mountains had pulled the storm close. "Best cover we'll get," he said. "Worst flying you'll hate." Olivia checked the bird again. Skin, bolts, lines. She spoke under her breath to it. Not words, rhythm. The way you calm a horse before you ride. At Aero 150, the team loaded. Weight redistributed itself into the aircraft in careful packets. Gear found its homes. Hands found their straps. Every click was a comma. Olivia glanced at her watch. Still stopped. She didn't tap it. She respected stubborn machinery. "Tower," she said on the net. "Grackle 1 ready." Grackle 1 cleared to roll. She pulled power. The skids sighed. The aircraft rose like it had decided to trust her, but would judge later. They skimmed above fence posts and sodium lights. The base fell away. The night grew teeth. The storm met them halfway. It dragged the rotors down with wet fists. She added power and trimmed and rode turbulence like a tired bull. On the scope, the valley was a dark vein. The route into it was a thread. Wind pressed the thread against rock. Her empty wallet thumped her hip when the aircraft bucked. She tucked it deeper into the pocket, like you tuck fear deeper under the ribs. The captain spoke updates like a metronome. Patrol patterns. Radar gaps. Time windows a minute wide. She slid through a saddle where hills leaned shoulder to shoulder. Below, a black river curled like a sleeping snake. They flew close enough to mist the canopy with its breath. A warning light winked on. It went off. It came back. Hydraulics. She ignored the first flicker. She couldn't ignore the second. "Chief," she said. "Reading you," he answered from the jump seat, eyes glued to a diagnostic brick wired to the bird's veins. Minor fluctuation. "Might be the sensor." Might be the line, "How much time to know?" she said. He didn't answer that. He couldn't. Time doesn't always trade fairly. Ahead, the storm thickened. It felt like flying into wool soaked in ice water. The terrain-following display jittered, as if the mountain had laughed. She steadied the cursor. The bird steadied her. "Wind shift," Brooks said. "Not panic. Just truth." She banked right. A ridge tried to lift a wing and drag her into stone. She dropped a hair of collective and slid under the ridge lip. The world narrowed to a tunnel shaped like need. The valley mouth appeared. It didn't welcome. It measured. Something new rode the net. A tone, thin, rising, not from her aircraft. From somewhere pointed at her. Missile-seeker tone, then two. Heat bloomed under her palms, though the cockpit stayed cold. That's what threat tones do. They heat the blood, painted, Olivia said. She didn't say by who. The mountain kept its secrets. The tone did not countermeasures armed. She didn't have to think. Her hands were 2 lines long, written years ago, read again tonight. Flares made a small sun behind them. Chaff turned to metallic snow. Mask it with terrain, the captain said. He still didn't shout, only the unsteady shout she dropped. The river jumped up at them. Water and black stone flashed. The aircraft hummed like a bowstring. A streak cut the air where they had been. It didn't find them. It surged with anger and then kissed a cliff. Second seeker lost, Brooks said. He sounded surprised at being alive. Don't thank me yet, Olivia said. Thank gravity. She works cheap, they ran deeper. The storm sat in the valley like a throne. Wind pulled her left sleeve. She corrected. The bird responded with grudging respect. A switchback canyon waited. She had studied its spine 100 times. The map never showed the smells or the way your stomach climbs your ribs there. The map never warned you how close rock feels when the rotor disc draws a straight line through crooked space. 2 minutes, the captain said. Insertion point small. Steep exit. Olivia pictured a basketball court sprayed onto stone by a careless hand. She pictured the corners shaved off by time. She pictured the wall that would loom on final. She pictured power settings and glide margin and dampers that might not damper. Her watch touched the glove when she flexed her wrist. No tick. It weighed the same whether it lived or not. She aligned the approach, nose into wind that did not know the word into. Wind here came from angles invented by goats. The opening appeared. Air circle the size of a coin in a fist. She bled speed in teaspoons. She held attitude like a word you say gently so it won't spook. Rotor wash hit rock and came back mean. The aircraft jolted. She added a breath of power. She took a hair away. The skids kissed stone. Down, she said. The word felt like she had put a boulder on her tongue. The team uncoiled. They flowed out instead of jumped. Their shadows went first. Then their boots. Then their will. Brooks stood last on the step and tugged at his sling like a man checks a seatbelt before a crash. He met her eyes for a fraction. He looked like someone who had left something behind on purpose. They vanished. Wind wrote its own language around the rotor tips. The bird fought to migrate. Olivia held it with fingertip control and a promise whispered to steel. Minutes lengthened. Each one carried 2 stones. She stacked them. Contact, the net said. Not a voice, a shard. Gunfire arrived late, like thunder behind lightning. It echoed around the bowl and made a choir from one gun. Olivia checked the hydraulic cross-tie again. The light stayed off. She didn't trust its good behavior. You never do with a liar who just told a small truth. The captain's updates came clipped. Move down left, hold flashlight, no flash. He was talking to ghosts. He was writing a new map under his breath. Olivia watched the river of fog creep. It curled into the cockpit vents and dampened her throat. She moved the environmental controls a notch and called it good. Her empty wallet nudged her again. She finally took it out. There was nothing to see. That was the point. She opened it and folded it shut. That movement had soothed her since she was 19 and broke and stubborn and about to sign papers that would turn strangers into brothers. Static cracked. A word tried to cross a canyon and died halfway. She caught the shape of it anyway. Package. Another volley found stone near them. Chips rattled across the skids like hail. Time to bounce, the captain said. He said it like telling rain to end. She spooled to full. The bird shivered. The storm laughed. She didn't. Figures formed at the edge of the landing circle. The captain Brooks, another shape sagging between arms, hood overhead. Hands bound. The team climbed the steps like a rehearsed prayer. Each foot landed in memory's groove. The captive groaned. Olivia did not let herself care about whether he deserved the groan. The last man swung in. The captain's hand struck the bulkhead twice. Old ship signal, go, she pulled. The skids peeled from stone with a sound like tape ripped from skin. Gun flash sprinkled their edges. The armor took rounds like a bully takes shoves when a teacher is near. Route 2 is hot, the captain said. Route 1 is a graveyard. Route 3. He didn't finish. There's a 4th, Olivia said. She had kept it to herself. Not from pride, from superstition. A thin line along a shoulder ledge she had found on an old survey sheet nobody loved. A dusty road clinging to the mountain, long abandoned, half landslide, half memory. Show me, he said. She turned. The ledge appeared and vanished in fog bursts. It looked narrower than regret. It looked like the kind of path you promise not to take and then do. Wait, she said. Everyone silent. No unnecessary motion. They moved like statues breathe. The bird's skids hovered inches from rock on the right, nothing on the left. She wanted to tilt into the mountain, but the mountain didn't want her close. It pushed her away with unkind air. She rode that insult and turned it into lift. They crawled. A new tone joined the old wind song. Fuel low, it should not be low. Fuel red? She asked. The chief went pale. Weeping from an ox line, he said. Not catastrophic. But we don't have what we planned. How short? She said. He told her. She did the math in her head. The numbers didn't fight. They shrugged. We'll make it out of the valley, she said. After that we barter. Barter what? Brooks asked. Altitude, she said. Peace, pride, they crept. The ledge narrowed more. The world beyond it deepened. Below the river chewed rock. The captive coughed. It sounded like a clock clearing its throat before it starts again. Wind smacked the tail. The aircraft skipped 1/2 meter left. The left was nothing. The rotor tip cut a shaving from the fog and the fog bled. Olivia set her jaw. She eased the nose right. She found the shape of the ledge again with the bottom of her eyes. They came to a break. The ledge had collapsed into a V, collected by gravity and held by scrub. The only way over it was through air that went nowhere. She had to hop it. She added power she wanted to save. The bird swelled against the straps. They hopped. The collective felt softer than before. The hydraulics made a request she didn't like. The warning light blinked on. The hydraulic light steadied, then flickered, then steadied again. A child playing red light, green light with her nerves. She tested. Response, pitch, roll, pedal. The aircraft obeyed but slowed like an old man rising from a low chair. Watch for lag, she told herself out loud. Saying it made the hands listen. The ledge grew kinder for one long breath and then cruel again. It ended at a spur the map showed as impassable. The survey sheet had given up there and wrote a shrug where a line should be. She aimed for the shrug. 2 trucks, Brooks said, peering through weather. Headlights kissing the ridge behind. Not ours, of course not. She chose speed or silence. Couldn't have both. She chose the one that left fewer bullet holes. The nose dipped. The world leaned. The rotor washed dust from stone old enough to teach her everything she needed to know about patience. They crossed the spur. It was less a crossing than a negotiated truce. The mountain gave them 3 seconds of calm. She paid with 3 years of breath. On the far side, the valley fell away into a basin. And there, like a coin lost and found, lay a flat big enough to let a bird catch itself. Hold, the captain said. Why? Olivia said. She wanted to land and not land. The flat tempted and warned. Because, he said, and then she heard it too. An engine that wasn't theirs. Above, not below. The storm didn't swallow everything? Fast mover? Brooks asked. No, Olivia said. Prop short wing. Shoulder fired or tractor airborne? Don't care. I'm not giving them silhouette. She edged under an overhang that shaved rotor clearance to the thickness of a letter. The ledge trembled in wind that wanted everything off it. They waited while fuel ticked away. She could smell it now. The leak had found a way to speak. Her empty wallet pressed her thigh. She thought of a grocery line years ago, counting coins and coming up short, and putting back the orange she had wanted because oranges were a luxury when water wasn't. Want is fine. Need wins. The engine sound above drifted west and thinned until it became another tone in the storm's choir. She didn't trust that either. She trusted the small math of her instruments and the big math of her bones. Go, the captain said. They left the overhang and slid across the basin. The flat space made the bird feel frisky. Frisky breaks necks. She held it to a line. Gunshots started up again. Different timbre, closer. A man who knows he's late and runs anyway. I can't outfly every angle, Olivia said. We need a curtain. Smoke, Brooks said and pulled 2 grenades from a pouch. The pin sound was the tiniest bell. He rolled them out the door. They bloomed like bruises on the flat. The wind took them apart and put them back together. Olivia cut through the smoke and felt the aircraft let go of one idea and grab another. She aimed for a notch where the sister valley met this one like 2 palms pressed in prayer. She almost laughed at that thought. Prayer here was physics done honestly. They slipped into the notch. The walls rose and shook hands above. Radio says extraction window at the cross valley is narrow, the captain said. If we miss it, we meet friends we don't want. Then we don't miss, Olivia said. Her watch caught the cockpit light and returned it dead. She listened for the old tick and heard only the rotor's big clock. A figure moved on a ledge ahead. He held something tube-shaped. Even through rain and stone and doubt, that shape was clear. Down, Brooks said, but she was already down and left and then forward. The rocket fired. It wrote a straight line that bent when it met the air behind her, tricked by her flare's false heat. The ledgeman stumbled backward as the backblast bit him. He fell, the mountain kept him. They entered the cross valley. Air changed. Pressure made their ears ache. A clean wind ran like a cat along the wall and then away. Olivia rode it and stole a sliver of lift. "Fuel at numbers I don't want to tell you," the chief said. "Tell me anyway," she said. He did. She pictured their base runway in her mind. Then she erased it. There wouldn't be enough. Not with this drag. Not with this leak. Not with the storm asking a tax on every mile. "We divert," she said. "Where?" The captain said. She thought of a thing no one liked. A dry lake that took water only during mad months. A flat faded to chalk and ringed with salt and rumour. Old testing ground. Unmarked now, forgotten. Except by one kid who once read a faded map because maps were cheap and hope was free. "There," she said, and traced it in the fog with the nose of the aircraft, as if the mountain could understand and permit. "Do it," the captain said. They left the valley with the storms snapping at their heels. On the far side, land spread in slow ripples. Lightning stitched a horizon that finally started to unclench. The aircraft loosened a hair. The tone for fuel became a steady nag. The captive coughed again. He said something in a language Olivia didn't speak. The words sounded like "our." Brooks leaned closer to the hood and said nothing. He had no words to give. Not to this one. Something flickered at the edge of Olivia's vision. Not light, a thought. She pushed it aside and kept only the numbers. 2 minutes to Dry Lake, she said. If the storm doesn't invent a new way to hate us, it invented one. A gust hit, cross, hard, unfair, and slapped the tail. The rotor yawed. She stomped pedal and felt it answer. Then slow, then answer again. Tail feels gummy, she said. Transmission reading is still good, the chief said. His voice lost a little thread. Feel isn't the panel, she said. The aircraft. Shuddered as if it remembered being shot earlier, and decided now would be a good time to complain. Hold together, she whispered. She didn't mean the hardware only. The white pan of the dry lake opened like a page the world had forgotten to write on. She lined up a long invisible runway and bled speed in teaspoons again. She held nose high. She watched for dust devils. A new vibration crawled up through the pedals. Tail-rotor, not imagined now. Felt it deepened. It threatened to own the whole bird. Vibration chewed at the rudder pedals. It climbed her shins and settled in the hinge of her jaw. Tail-rotor out of balance or out of time. Either way it wanted to write the ending. She stayed ahead of it. Small corrections. Slower than habit. She let the nose wander a shade, and then gathered it back like a lamb that liked cliffs. Fields open, the captain said. No vehicles, no people. Just us and the sky. Sky isn't neutral, Olivia said. But the ground can be, if we ask nicely. She set the descent. A shallow bowl. Not a drop. She didn't trust the tail to like sudden moves. Fuel tone kept time. The bird breathed in fumes and asked for more. She remembered the dusty road to school. She remembered a gutted bus that came late and left early. She remembered lifting her feet at puddles without water in them. Practice for flying? Maybe everything is. Skids clear, the chief said, eyes on the lake crust as if looking hard could keep it from cracking. They touched. Not hard. Not soft, true. The vibration changed. It felt like anger dying. It felt like metal admitting a tired truth. She kept power on. She needed to be able to leap again if the world offered new teeth. Wind ran across the lake and drew lines in the salt. Shut down, the captain asked. Negative, she said. We're guests. We don't put our feet on their table. Brooks cracked the door for air and a smell like old coins and wet chalk came in. The captive shifted. He said another word that could have been a curse or a plea. He sounded more human when he suffered. That's the hardest part of enemies. They insist on being people. Olivia's watch glinted. Still dead. She liked it that way. Time should stop for some things. She did a fast assessment. Tail-rotor play. Transmission heat. Fuel barely enough to spin up, let alone travel far. They could wait and pray for a tanker that couldn't reach them in this mess, or they could steal what the storm wanted to keep secret. Wind direction, she said. The captain checked streamers that existed only in his head. Quartering left. Good, she said. We're going to sail. He didn't ask how. He knew better than to step into a pilot's sentence before it finished writing itself. She feathered power and lifted an inch. The skids skated. The lake skin was slick as truth. The wind grabbed the tail and nudged. The aircraft drifted like a boat that had decided to try being a bird again later. She used the rudder barely. She didn't want to make the tail roar. She let the gust push them toward the far edge, where a dirt track showed itself faint as a vein under skin. They slid. It was not elegant. It was survival. She liked survival. It was art done with mud. Why there? Brooks asked. Because a man who tests in the desert needs a way home, she said. Where there's an old way, there's old fuel. It was not logic. It was hope dressed as experience. They reached the edge. The skids found dirt and stopped being skates. The aircraft sighed. Olivia added a biscuit of power and hopped them onto the berm. Kill, she said at last. Silence arrived like a guest who knows not to hug in front of a soldier. It stood close. It didn't say it missed anyone. Heat rose from the cowling. Rain hit it and hissed. The storm tugged at their hair and got bored. Perimeter, the captain said. 3 men ghosted into the brush with rifles that looked like extensions of bones. Olivia opened her empty wallet and took out a small, folded scrap she never had the heart to throw away. It was a bus ticket stub from the day she left home for flight screening. The ink had bled into the paper and made a map of nothing. But it had once taken her from one world to another. She smoothed it against her knee and then tucked it back. Rituals matter. They sort the soul's tools. They walked to the edge of the lake and found the track. It led toward a fence of leaning posts and rusted wire. Beyond that, darkness clumped into the shape of a shed. Stay, Olivia said to the bird, the way you tell a dog you trust. She didn't know if machines listened. She spoke anyway. They moved together. The captain, Brooks, Olivia, and a silence that carried promise. The shed wore a padlock that had died 20 summers ago. The captain looked at it and it fell open. That's skill. Inside, dust. Old tires. 2 empty drums and one that didn't ring like a bell when he tapped it. He tapped again. This drum thudded. Weight inside. They rolled it out. The lid had no pry left. Brooks made one. The smell of fuel lifted like a herb broken between fingers. Avgas? The chief asked, appearing out of rain with half a grin. Enough, Olivia said, sniffing. Maybe not perfect, but nothing is. They dragged the drum to the bird and set a line. Gravity did her simple saint work. The fuel climbed down. They didn't take all. Thieves can be generous. The storm lifted its hem and showed a sliver of stars stitched back together. In that seam, Olivia felt the world permit them. Spin, the captain said softly. She looked at the tail and then the lake and then the ridge they had come over like sinners. She took her seat. She touched the cracked watch once. For luck, for memory, for all the time she owed and all the time owed her. She started the engine and listened like a doctor for a newborn's first cry. It came. Thin. Strong enough. They lifted inches. They listened to the tail. It growled. It threatened. It agreed to try. They pointed at home. Base, the captain said. Crackle 1 departing lakebed with package. Static. Then a voice that wanted to sound routine and failed. Copy. Doors are open. The flight back would not be a glide. The storm still wanted them. But now the math made a different shape. Halfway home, the captive spoke again. He said a number this time. A coordinate. He said it twice. It sat in the cockpit air like a cold coin. Brooks wrote it. The captain didn't respond. Olivia did the conversion in her head because sometimes numbers look at a pilot and introduce themselves. The coordinate described a place not far from home. Mine? She asked. Maybe, the captain said. Trap, Brooks said. Or a gift wrapped in razor wire, Olivia said. Lightning stitched the horizon again. The tail-rotor coughed. It coughed again. Longer. Then it went quiet. Silence where a tail-rotor used to sing is a special silence. It holds your name in its hands. It considers you. Olivia reacted the way discipline reacts. She didn't yank, she set, nose down a whisper. Collective down to trade height for control. Forward speed her friend, crosswind her therapist. Loss of anti-torque, the chief said. His voice had the careful calm of a man walking on a frozen lake. I noticed, Olivia said, and eased into a shallow descending turn that played kind with the airframe and unkind with panic. Auto-rotate, Brooks asked. On a helo with a heart this heavy, she said. We'll glide as far as we can and then we'll decide what to break. The storm took notes. It measured her. Below, the land had softened into low scrub and regret. No power lines, no animals brave enough to be here tonight. The dry lake behind them lay flat and done. Speed is life, she murmured, but too much speed ends it. She found the angle the manual loved and the real world tolerated. The aircraft settled into it like a tired runner finds a second pace. The base beacon blinked on the far side of the dark. It looked closer than it was. Everything does when you're low. 10 out, the captain said. Not to inform, but to make the number behave. She lowered the nose a hair to stay ahead of the yaw that wanted to chew them. Pedal input mattered less now. The fin did what it could. The rest was blessing and craft. The captive began to pray. At least it sounded like prayer. Maybe math. Maybe confession. Pick me a field, Olivia said. Brooke's night eyes cut the ground into pieces and picked the least bad one. Left 10 degrees, she took the suggestion. The field he liked was a flattened plot near a road. The road was dirt. A dusty road. Kite ran north-south like an old vow. She smiled with half her mouth. Always the dusty road, she said. The watch on her wrist touched the cuff again. She felt its weight like she felt her choices. Not loud, real.